so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false.
Does she want politicians, paid liars, to decide what's true and what's not true?
This was the danger of the left all along. They think that if only they had enough power, they could correct all of us. And those of us that are conservative or lean right, whatever it might be, we believe the only answer is to take power away from the big structures. And then, yeah, life is a little messy. But I'd rather deal with a little bit of a messy life than some big structure that can just strike any of us down whenever it so chooses, run by people like AOC.
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for the last week, I wouldn't be so concerned about her threats. But I think after watching all of these platforms kind of disavow conservatives, block them and deplatform them, I am a lot more concerned.
Whether by design or by accident, the power that these big tech companies have been allowed to amass is a pretty dangerous thing in a democratic society in particular. And the fact that even throughout the events of the last few days that we have to hear from, Angela Merkel in Germany saying, oh, this is a really dangerous thing that is an unprecedented threat to the freedom of speech. We're not hearing that from many people in our own government at the highest levels, which should raise alarm bells given our society is set up on this foundation of fundamental freedoms, foremost among which is that freedom of speech. And again, I think this should be a cause for a lot of introspection amongst us as people, but also in holding our own leaders accountable, saying, how can you support this? The thing that is always interesting to me and that I've seen numerous examples of, especially over the last year, is how people, like AOC and others support these actions.
We're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false.
I've heard that this works in China, places like they have state media where they rein them in, and it works really well there.
It sounds like she's awfully upset about fake news, isn't it? Wasn't there a guy that was screaming about fake news for a long time, and now she's upset about fake news? The difference is Donald Trump attacked the fake news media. He attacked CNN and the rest of them, but he didn't really do anything. I mean, he verbally attacked them. He didn't do anything. What we know AOC will gladly do is use the power of government to shut down voices that she does not like.
But what happens if, Jack leaves Twitter and it's taken over by somebody who holds values different from AOC, and then the tables are turned and they decide, actually, you know what? We don't want to hear what you have to say.
Google gave us instant access to vast amounts of information. Facebook gave us a new way to connect with friends, family, and the world. Twitter brought this world to us in real time. And YouTube allowed anyone with a smartphone to become a virtual broadcast network onto themselves. It was glorious and empowering. But that was yesterday. Today, it's 1984 all over again. Big Brother's back with an important twist. Our former liberators now want to be our masters. Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, the giants of social media, are demanding conformity to their values. It's their way or the highway. Conform or die. This image is perfectly captured not by an ad, but by this recent real-life scene. Row after row of men and women stare up at Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, as he makes a presentation, ironically before a civil rights group. We only have one message for those who seek to push hate, division, and violence. You have no place on our platforms, Cook tells his audience. You have no home here. Hate? Division? According to whom? The answer is obvious. According to Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. They are becoming the big brother Orwell foresaw.
And by the way, this is where, when they call for unity, what she means is, yes, once we eliminate all the voices we don't like, we will have unity. It's a little Emperor Palpatine-ish of her,
You know, the irony, though, is that if, don't correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was an Instagram Live, right? So she wants to be able to go on Instagram Live and say whatever she wants, right? But then she doesn't want anyone else to be able to do it. It's sort of like what she's saying is contrary to what she's actually doing.
But you also have to really listen to what she's not exactly saying, because, you know, they'll say that, okay, half the country's Nazis and bigots and white supremacists and all those horrible things. But they also say, you know, if you are pro-life, for example, you hate women. If you're against the Green New Deal, you know, you want to destroy the environment. If you don't sign on to her agenda, otherwise the world is going to end in 12 years. Well, then at that point, why would they let you spread those ideas online?
Shouldn't we maybe look at AOC's endless Instagram story feeds that she does, the Instagram lives for misinformation, before she starts unconstitutionally putting government regulation on the free media?
I would hate to be in charge of watching AOC's Instagram all day. Wow. No, thanks. Yeah, when she says she wants to rein in, that means she wants to basically regulate conservative speech on talk radio, the internet, and television. Has anybody checked when the last time a government had to destroy people's individual rights in order to protect them? Doesn't usually go that well when that happens. Does she want politicians, paid liars, to decide what's true and what's not true?
There's no reason to think that now that these people feel like they're this close to power. And this also was what I was warning about with Biden, because a lot of my more centrist Democrat friends, there's not many of them left, but there's a couple. A lot of them kept saying, oh, don't worry, Biden will stop this thing. He'll stop the radicals. They didn't bring in the radicals. They didn't go with Bernie or Elizabeth Warren, so he'll stop it. But what we're seeing is that, you know, if I can make an Alien reference, it's like he's just the body, he's the host, and the alien, the lefty alien, is going to burst forth in about a week from today.
Yeah, well, that's...
And it's bursting forth right now, and it's pretty obvious to everybody.
No, and I saw it yesterday. We covered this, but you had Oliver Darcy from CNN, which is part of the AT&T, i.e. Time Warner, DirecTV network, saying that stations like Newsmax should not be on... but be carried by cable outlets. And that worries me, because this is where it gains steam, and a lot of these guys say, so once you silence us on all these different platforms, then you can have unity, right? Once no one else can talk to us.
Has anybody checked when the last time a government had to destroy people's individual rights in order to protect them? Doesn't usually go that well when that happens. Does she want politicians, paid liars, to decide what's true and what's not true? When have liberals trusted the government? You're saying after Vietnam, the WMD fiasco, the dossier, the China virus, all the CIA and FBI abuses, you want the feds telling you what you can say and what truth is and what truth isn't? What this is really about is she's trying to basically obliterate any sort of competition in the political communication world.